If you've tried to use a Steam controller with your Nintendo Switch emulator, you've probably run into trouble, particularly with the gyro sensor not communicating with the software. I wanted to make a quick post here to highlight a solution for anyone who might be looking. I was personally having this issue while emulating on my deck, so that will be what I demonstrate. At this time, I can't speak for issues on other systems. The trouble here, as far as I know, is that the gyro signal is being filtered out by Steam Input, and even though Steam Input has a lot of options regarding how the gyro behaves within an app or game launched through the Steam client, there's no way to just turn it on without assigning it to perform a specific controller function. Since the Steam controller requires Steam Input to work at all, you can't simply disable it to use the controller directly with the software. The way we go about this with the Steam Deck itself, which is limited in much the same way, is through a little plugin called SteamDeckGyroDSU. You run it, tell the emulator to listen for motion data on a specific port, and just like that, the emulator receives gyro messages from the handheld. Fortunately, as new as the Steam controller is, someone has already made an alternate version of that same plugin called SteamControllerGyroDSU. It performs the same function, can be used with multiple Steam controllers, and doesn't get in the way of the Steam Deck gyro if you already have that software installed and configured in your emulator. I put the link for the GitHub to this program below. Let's begin. First, on your Steam Deck, go into desktop mode and open this GitHub link in your browser. On this page, go to the Releases tab, and in the Assets dropdown, click SteamControllerGyroDSU.desktop, and download it straight to your desktop. From here, just double-click on the program and trust it, and it will install itself as a background service, leaving on your desktop a way to quickly update it and uninstall it. Once it's done, don't close the terminal. First, take a look at the terminal. See this IP address and port number? We'll need that for the next step. That next step is to open your Nintendo Switch emulator. Click on Emulation in the top left corner, and then Configure in the drop-down menu. In Settings, open the Controller Setup. Grab your Steam controller and find it in the Input Device drop-down. Press a button or two to see if the gamepad you've selected is the Steam controller. If you're not seeing the Steam controller in this drop-down, exit out of the emulator and try opening it through Steam itself by adding the app image as a non-Steam game. If you're certain that the correct gamepad is selected but nothing's happening, press and hold the Start or Select button on your controller. It might be in desktop mode instead of gamepad mode. Once you see that your inputs are registering, click on the Configure button underneath the checkbox that says Motion. In this menu, there's a box for emuhook config along with text boxes for server address and port number. In the server address box, type in the address you saw in the terminal earlier, 127.0.0.1. Then in the port number box, type in the port 26761. When you've entered the information, just click Add Server. After that's done, click OK and exit that window. The gyro is ready to be connected. From here, you should see a box that says Motion 1 Not Set. Click that box, grab your Steam controller, and give it a shake. If you've done everything right, you should see the box read emuhook UDP, and the indicator box on the controller diagram should be moving in tandem with the position of your controller. That's all there is to it. Just click OK in the bottom right corner and exit the settings window, and you're ready to start playing. Before you go, I think it's worth noting here that these emulators, in my experience, don't keep very good track of controllers and their settings once you've exited the program or disconnected a controller, so you'll most likely have to go into settings to shake and re-enable the gyro every time. Emulators requiring a bit of tinkering from time to time is something that I've more or less accepted, so I wanted to conclude by showing how I have my deck in Steam Controller's default gamepad mode set up to do just that sort of tinkering. You might run your emulators individually through Steam as non-Steam games, or you might run them all through a single front-end like ESDE the way I do. In any case, this is what I've found best for getting under the hood on the fly without going through the hassle of desktop mode over and over. My controller is mapped almost entirely standard for play, while I use the trackpad and paddles for quick service. I've set it this way because it seems like each time I boot up a Nintendo Switch game, the gyro is disconnected. So once the game's menu loads, I hit my R4 paddle, bound to the F11 key, to exit full screen and to display the toolbar. Then I use my right trackpad to mouse over to the emulation settings drop-down and press in on the trackpad to click around to the controller setup where I can shake the controller and start the gyro. Then I can hit apply and press my R4 paddle again to jump back into full screen for the rest of the session. I have my L4 paddle set to the F4 key to pause emulation, since it sadly does not come to a standstill just by hitting the sleep button. If I don't pause the emulation before putting the deck into sleep mode, it just wakes it back up again. This way, I have that function immediately available so that I don't have to exit full screen and mouse over to the pause button in the toolbar every time I want to put down the handheld. Suffice it to say, after spending a significant amount of time emulating on the Steam Deck, I've found that taking just a minute to set up these little shortcuts is critical. Since it's a portable console at the end of the day, most of us aren't always going to have a mouse and keyboard connected and ready to get in and make changes like we do with our desktops. Setting up my controller's extra inputs to handle business now and then has made it so much simpler to just get into a game and enjoy it as if it were meant to be there, rather than a hateful, cobbled-together product of black magic like emulation tends to be. And that's why I'm ending the video in this way. I just wanted for you to be made aware of your options and to be equipped for troubleshooting so that your emulating experience is as fluid as possible. If you have any tips of your own you'd like to share, please do. I'm eager to hear your feedback. Thank you for watching.